Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Who dares awaken me from my slumber? JJ Squatchman. It's always excellent getting ready to team up with you for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yet I have been sleeping for so long in the fox den, I must feed. Absolutely delicious. I could sit here and drink all day. Yet, JJ and myself have things to attend to. So without further ado, it is time for JJ Squatchman and myself to venture into the darkness.
My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. I do appreciate everybody staying loyal during my rebrand, and yes, it has been completed, and we have things that have been cooking up in the oven being served up left and right. And again, tonight we have JJ in the house, and he's been here before, and he will be here again. Yet, the question I really would like to ask everybody tonight before we get JJ on the mic here is what happens when a legend, the truth, outruns the fiction? What does it become? And JJ, how are you tonight, man?
Oh, I'm doing good, Ken. Doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure, man, to link up with you. And like I said, getting caught back up. So it's a good thing, man. And tonight I figured we would, well, everyone for the most part seems to think the Michigan Dogman is where it all started. Well, they're remotely correct, but, I would potentially argue that indigenous culture started it. But let's roll with the modern day tag of when it really kind of got some steam here in North America. And sure, it's Michigan. So I figured tonight, if maybe we'd read through some of these really creepy, almost unable to be hoaxed. I mean, sure, it could have been hoaxed, but just these points in time, and it's just mind-boggling. And I figured, we should dive into the good old Michigan Dogman and get some of your thoughts on that.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. Yeah, I'm JJ Scotchman Messenger, and my actual focus is Sasquatch. But I'm learning more about the Dogman, especially through people like you, and I'd love to hear about this.
Excellent, my friend. And actually, somebody just recently, I will open a message with both of you. Dan Dobson's his name. He's a buddy of mine, and he had some really interesting, we believe, potential Dogman vocalizations, but he's also got some really strange potential Sasquatch ones. And he was looking to bounce that off some people. And I opened up a few chats, and I'll open up one with you and him later, too, because I think you'd be interested in hearing that. And I mean,
Oh, you bet.
of course. So don't get me wrong. Obviously, Sasquatch and Bigfoot is cool, but I'm not going to try to front or lie to anybody. I have been so intrigued and baffled by the Dogman since I was 11 teen. And the more and more that I dive into this topic, it just becomes so much more mysterious. And honestly, what I've never had paranormal experiences or anything along the lines of that. Okay. So when I first came into this, I 100%, and I still approach it like this as a healthy skeptic, subjective, objective, and I don't go into anything believing things just based off of stature. And I ask questions to form my own opinions based off of my science team, etc. Yet I used to be on the edge where I say, if you were to hold me up against the wall and be like, Star Fox, you tell me right now, do you believe? I would have been like, I don't know, JJ. But now, honestly, again, I'm a huge believer in the dire wolf, okay, the short-faced cave bear, cave hyenas, Dinopithecus still being around, or ancestors of them, okay. I'm a firm believer that modern-day hyenas are in areas that we don't necessarily document, whether they escaped, were let loose, etc. Same thing with baboons, okay. I'm all about all that stuff, all right. I'm all about people having misidentifications, yes. I'm all about people being full of crap and hoaxing, 100%. But then I get to some of these cases is where these people swear up and down and they're educated enough that they are seeing something that has long arms, bent back legs, and it looks like a dog person, not necessarily a man or woman, okay, but that's the terminology. And I have so many documented cases of them having these elongated arms that go past their knees, basically, that are almost dragging
Wow.
towards their ground, okay. And when they stand, they're almost hunched over, leaning forward already, meaning their center of gravity, because the long arms is why they can go quadrupedal and bipedal so easy and back and forth with ease, okay, meaning like there is no struggle, it's just a very natural motion. And also when they have been spotted running beside cars or just in the fields, they're leaned over almost to the point of looking like they're going to fall over. Picture like a sprinter, how their center of gravity, they're tipped over almost like they're going to fall over, but they're not. Same thing with, say a motorcycle, when they come around the corners, those racers, where they're so close but they got that center of gravity. So I know people have to potentially be seeing some stuff, and this is now where we're gonna, blow some people's minds. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have heard some of these, but I would like to consider myself pretty educated on the topic, and there was a lot in here that I was completely baffled about. And I'm all about learning all the time, so it was great. But we're going to start with 1794, Michigan. Okay, we have a woman named Jean Louise Battis. She's out with her family and their Nabobish guide. As the guide is leading the family up a ridge, the man turns and stops. And then he points over at an area of extremely dense thicket down near a stream before pausing and saying, "This is the home of the Loup Garou."
Oh, wow. Loup Garou, the French legend. Yes.
Yes, because this was an area where the French settlers came in. So that's 1794. All right. Well, nothing too, out of the ordinary right there. It could just be a person saying that. Okay, whatever. Let's go to August 1857, Comstock, Michigan now. All right. We have local resident Lucille Patridge. She is reported to be seeing what looks like an enormous gray wolf that looks to stand like a human near their barn at night, always watching them before turning around and slowly walking away once being noticed.
Oh, wow. A barn. Have you noticed the frequency of barns in many reports?
I have. I feel like it's probably a pretty easy area to be discreet, and also you can, get in there probably pretty easily. And
Or
also,
livestock, maybe livestock
yeah,
lure?
livestock and dig burrows underneath there. Yeah, so I definitely heard that, quite a lot. So I think maybe that comes into play a bit. March 1859, Lexington, Michigan. A man was chopping wood outside when suddenly a large wolf emerges from the forest, grabbing the man by the throat and pulling him into the woods. His wife witnessed the entire encounter and soon had grabbed her husband's axe and chased after the animal, forcing it to drop dropped the man before dashing away. She turned around to her husband's side, but his throat had been completely torn out, and he soon perished.
Oh, wow. That is wicked. That is fierce.
And it keeps
Now, are there many reports of throats being torn out that no one could like get to the bottom to? That would be an interesting query to see how much this happens.
Interestingly enough, down in Texas recently, there was a man that had his throat clawed out, and the woman that was brought in specialized in large cats and stuff said it was impossible to have been done by a large cat at the height that when he was standing up and how it just clawed his throat out. So, yeah, that's been definitely heard of a ton of times for sure. And what's even worse is we're still pretty early on here. So we got 1868, Ludington, Northern Michigan. 3-year-old Katie Flynn suddenly vanishes from her tent at her father's remote lumber camp in a dense part of the forest. After frantically searching, Mr. Flynn was unable to successfully find his daughter, Katie. Out of sheer luck, 2 hunters had stumbled upon the frantic man and offered to help find his girl. So they all began searching the surrounding area. The men eventually heard the girl's feeble, faint cries coming from a dense patch of brush up ahead. As the 3 men approached the brush, a giant wolf-like animal burst out of the brush and headed towards the river at high speeds and off into the distant horizon. Inside the brush, they find the 3-year-old girl who later, upon returning to camp, told her father and the 2 men that Mr. Wolf wouldn't let her leave. The little girl said the creature had fed her berries, but it also seemed to get very angry at her when she was full, and also when she said she wanted to go home, proceeding to rip her hat off her head and eat it while she was still wearing it.
Oh man, wow. I wonder. I wonder if the missing situations if that could tie in. That's
The
very
missing
unnerving.
411, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
411. That is really unnerving.
Isn't it, my friend? And that's one of the numerous cases we have of children like that in other areas we can dive into in the future. But now, January 1885, Menome, Michigan. It's negative 43 below Fahrenheit one cold night. Food has been scarce, and a local man named Mr. Duggan has never returned to the village, and the temperatures are falling quickly. The following morning, Duggan's friends set out to find him, and they find the grisly remains of the man about 2 miles away from the camp. He had been found torn absolutely to pieces with empty shells of his rifle all on the ground and enormous human-like canine tracks around the man's deceased corpse.
Wow. You see, a normal wildlife would not rip someone into little pieces.
Yeah, they would consume it, you would think. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be like a corpse with areas consumed, but not like something out of a Predator movie.
Yes, exactly, right? And now we go to June 1887, the Manistee River, the Manistee National Forest, Wexford County, Michigan. A group of 11 loggers, yes, 11 witnesses here, are working out in the early morning. They have traveled a very long distance to get this job when money and work is scarce. As they are out working, they spot what seems to be a large black canine creature near the area. Approaching the creature, they then believe it must be somebody's dog, and they try to chase it around playfully, even though this animal has no intention of wanting to be near them. They chase it into a nearby log pile. In an attempt to play with the animal, one logger named Johnson begins shoving a stick in the log pile in an attempt to get the animal back out into view. To everyone's disbelief, the animal begins screaming like some sort of enraged human animal hybrid before letting out loud popping sounds and pushing itself upright on 2 legs and seemingly braced to attack the men. Terrified, the loggers fled the area, grabbed their gear, and were never heard from again.
Oh, unbelievable. That that kind of story, that really is that will give you nightmares for sure.
Sure, they could have all just decided they didn't want to work again and just
Yeah.
ate that all up. But that doesn't really seem to make sense for people that traveled quite a long distance to get the work in the first place. So, again, head scratching. Now we go to 1893, northern Michigan. The son of a local named Alexander Belleville. The man is out hunting with a friend when they are overtaken by a pack of enormous wolves. Quickly overpowering Belleville, the wolves tore the man to pieces, forcing Belleville's friend to climb the nearest tree. Firing his rifle down at the animals, it seemed to do nothing to save the man, as the wolves returned to rip the man to shreds and hold the other hunter at bay in the tree, just seemingly to grin at the man as they were eating his friend. Only when a group of workers from a nearby construction site had heard the pleas did they make their way over and were able to chase off the wolves.
That's not normal wolf behavior, that's for certain. Um, I wonder if rabies maybe was an act. I don't know.
Exactly. So, I mean, there are potential, like you said, reasonings, I guess. These are older dates where, shoot, I don't even know if they would have known potentially about the term rabies back then. I mean,
Yeah.
they obviously must have seen animals acting berserk like that, but yes, for sure. Now we go to 1897, Buckley, Michigan. A local farmer is out working in his fields with a manual plow when he is found slumped over and deceased with massive, strange, unknown human-like canine tracks all around the area. The cause of his demise, supposedly from the coroner, was that he was scared into unexistence by whatever he had seen.
Oh man. When people in the area, they know the wildlife of that area. So to be that scared would have to be something very, very unusual.
You would think, right? 1907, Michigan. A local woman is woken up to a pack of strange, large, human like dogs walking upright and circling her house as they scream and laugh.
Oh, scream and laugh. Oh man, how would anyone respond to this?
Probably like she did, just stayed in her house until someone wondered why she hadn't gone to the market recently and they showed up, right?
She's like under the bed. It's
Yeah.
holy mackerel.
1917, Michigan. Local sheriff is out walking one afternoon down a remote trail when he suddenly comes across a driverless wagon with enormous canine tracks all around in the dust. Nearby laid a four-horse team, all deceased with their eyes open, and it was reported by the vet he believed they were scared into unexistence. Later on, they found out that the wagon and horse were tied to a missing doctor that was never found.
Wow, the horses. The horses. I know that horses have a very emotional type reaction to external stimulus, but
Mm-hmm.
holy mackerel. I've heard of horses reacting to cryptids across the spectrum.
Not in a good way. Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
now we go to 1930, Saginaw, northern Michigan. Locals begin reporting seeing an upright bipedal wolf-like creature circling and surrounding the nearby forest. The locals have dubbed this creature the Michigan Dogman and believe this werewolf-looking entity is responsible for the brutal maulings of numerous homeless people that are in transit. These homeless people have been found ripped to pieces in a way not known to any native species to the area. These homeless people in transit were also known to use the railroad tracks for easy travel. It's believed this is when the dogman, or whatever people would like to call it, would plot the ambush when the victims are isolated by dense and dark forest.
Wow. That's a terrible thing. I mean, down on their luck, people, on their last penny, and this is how they meet their end. Terrible.
Yeah, that is definitely not a good way, right?
No.
1937, Bowers Harbor, Michigan. A captain and his crew of a small vessel report seeing a strange pack of large bipedal dogs screaming and roaming the local shoreline.
I'd be very curious to know how they scream and how they sound.
We actually have a
Oh,
bunch
yes.
of potential Dogman audio, meaning it's unverifiable to anything else that matches up with it. So once we get done recording here tonight, I'll send those over to you, man.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty eerie for sure. 1938, Michigan. Local man Robert Fortney is out walking deep within the forest when he is suddenly startled by what seems to be a strange canine like creature walking bipedally, smiling at him as it disappeared into the nearby dense brush only a few yards away.
Yeah. When they say they smile, when dogs appear to smile, but it could be like a real deep panting or
Yes, yes.
breathing or, yeah. Yeah, that's a very doggish feature there. Many pet
Creepy.
dogs appear to smile,
Yeah, so I mean, in theory, yes, maybe it isn't
Yeah.
smiling like you said, but yeah, if it was, like, what the heck? So now we go to 1952, northern Michigan. A 9-year-old boy has been adopted by an elderly German couple, Mr. and Mrs. T, who live in a very remote farmstead deep in the forest. Something has been mutilating and unaliving the couple's livestock and their pets lately, and it's too close to their property, and unfortunately, they are too old to deal with the situation on their own. The boy doesn't stay at the main farmstead, but a small shack used for supplies about a mile away from the main farmstead. The boy was given a rifle and told by Mr. T his job was to check on the livestock at night and make sure there aren't any animals being taken. One night, as the boy has finished his nightly rounds, he returns to the shack and decides to sit out front and enjoy the beautiful night. As the boy is sitting there listening to the sounds of the forest, he slowly dozes off when suddenly he hears the sound of brush rustling in the forest just ahead of him. Jumping to his feet in the moonlight, the boy sees a large black bipedal wolf-like creature with glowing red eyes, two enormous long human-like arms, walking towards him on its hind legs. Quickly raising his rifle, the boy shoots at the animal, hitting it in the arm, causing the creature to let out a strange yelp screech before it drops down onto all fours and quickly dashes off into the night. Running inside, the boy closes the door and sits on his bed to keep watch for the creature, only to fall asleep again. During the night, the boy is awoken to scratching on the shack's window and sees the same creature snarling at him while it's showing its enormous teeth. Grabbing his gun to once again fire at the animal, the creature snaps its jaws at him, growling almost to be like, "Yeah, you want to do that, buddy?" before it slowly backs away into the night. The following morning, the boy told Mr. T about his encounter with the creature, only to have the old man scold him for not dealing with the animal and ridiculing the boy, telling him it was just a wolf or a bear.
Wow, intense. The glowing red eyes bit, that tends to be a common thing with many cryptids. The eyes that are apparently emitting their own red light instead of reflecting the light.
Yes,
I'm totally mystified by that. That seems to be an unnatural or supernatural thing, but perhaps there is a biological reasoning behind it.
it's creepy as heck, like you said, and there's no way we're gonna obviously be able to get through the Michigan chapter, but I'm trying to filter through some of the more ones that I actually hadn't been introduced to and that are pretty hard to explain. Now we go to 1957, Craft Avenue, Michigan. Local Reverend Patrick Stevenson is watching over the Methodist church when suddenly some sort of large animal begins frantically trying to enter the church. The following morning, when opening the front doors to the church, the man saw what looked to be massive dog like scratches. Contacting the local sheriff, they came over, and to everyone's surprise, this canine would have had to be 7'4".
Wow, that is so tall. That is big.
Yeah, even a Great Dane or anything on his back legs isn't 7'4".
No way.
Couldn't scratch that high up anyhow. So
No,
yes, like what the heck?
Marmaduke can't do that.
Nope. So
That's
now we go to
crazy.
1967, Michigan. A group of four terrified campers flagged down a park ranger named Quinland. They explained to the ranger that at night they were awoken to a strange, enormous, bipedal, dog like creature banging on the windows to their van and seeming to grin at them.
Once again, I wonder if they actually are grinning. That would be unnerving, to say the least.
To say the least, yes.
They
Oh,
would
man.
obviously have greater intelligence than your average canine species. So,
You would seem to think potentially by this, and it seems like they feed off of fear. And the thing is, most people obviously don't go back to these areas, or if it's at your house, you're not moving. So, but if these people, I wonder, were to actually go back, I'm pretty optimistic these things can enter at any point in time and they will get you. But I think they're just toying with you, meaning if my friend can rip off the door to his RV to get his child who locked himself in there and he didn't want him playing with stuff in there, and he's a 6'4", 250-pound man. Come on, you and I or anybody else could do the same if we needed to. So yes, a Dogman could easily gain entrance, but I think they're feeding off of the fear, and that it's just like it makes it so much better when they get you.
that would lend itself to the paranormal, where there's certain entities that feed off the psychic energy that's released by fear and stress. It usually comes with the oppression stage in demonology.
Yes, exactly, man. 1974, 1 p.m., Pontiac, Michigan. A man is found in an old house in the forest near an area known as Bald Mountain, with his throat ripped clean out by something large. All over the house, he was found covered in wolfsbane, but it gets creepier, though. All the windows had been fitted with bars, and massive metal doors were installed in the front of the house.
Oh wow, that man was preparing. He knew something was after him.
Yeah, unfortunately, which is pretty interesting. So now we go to 1975, 12 a.m., Manistee County, Michigan. 21-year-old Sue Baker is in bed with her husband when suddenly the pair hear an eerie, wolf like human scream howl coming from outside their remote house. Grabbing their gun, Baker's husband turns on the front porch, opened up the back door at the same time, and began yelling for the intruder to leave. There was no response, just the dead silence of the night.
Oh man, try getting a good night's sleep after that.
And this last one right here I want to cover with you, man, is like I said to the audience, the Michigan section goes on and on and on. But July 16th, 1987, 2:48 p.m. Yes, the afternoon. Luther, Michigan. Locals that live near the area see what looks to be a massive canine like creature trying to break into this remote cabin. They call the sheriff's department, and local deputy Jeff Chamberlain is the first to arrive at the remote cabin for what initially is believed to just be vandalism in his eyes. But once he arrives, he finds massive chew marks, scratches, and punctures all over the door and windows, seeming to have been made by a canine because of the enormous human like canine tracks that were found outside near a broken window. There were also deep gouges and scratches with some sort of bloody slobber all over the side of the cabin, which looked to have been done by something with 5 digits, including a thumb. Deputy Chamberlain goes on to say that the slobber, he couldn't tell if it was from something it had been eating or if it had cut its mouth while trying to get into the cabin, but it was well above his head. Also, he seemed to say that the slobber was still wet and was appearing to be fresh. He filed his report with the National Department of Resources, who once again sent out their own investigator, Lieutenant Devin McDill, to meet Deputy Chamberlain at the scene. Once explaining what he had found, Deputy Chamberlain left the scene, but also, as McDill was exploring the area more, he found additional enormous canine-like tracks leading off into the forest.
Wow. I wonder if any of those tracks, that they were able to make impressions, to make any casts.
Such a good question, my friend. And that's what's cool now is how we actually have some of those casted. And I do encourage you to look at our North American Dogman Project website. We have a ton of the footprints up there and stuff. And I can actually, send you some of those as well.
Yes.
I don't know, man. Like I said, just That's not even half of my Michigan section, okay? And it's mind-boggling.
Poor Michigan. This is terrible.
Yeah, how do you feel about all those pretty much, man? And what's your thoughts, dude?
Well, usually people don't make up something that they're going to be ridiculed over. So I believe that these people were probably obviously traumatized by something that happened, and just exactly what it was, I don't know. I mean, I'm still in the dark with Dogman. I have no idea. Is it mutated Sasquatch? Is it paranormal? Is it supernatural? Is it actual canine beings that are very human-like? Or is it some type of cryptid canine that people are misinterpreting? I just have no idea.
Right, my friend? I mean, those are all very valid questions. And as I stated at the beginning of this episode, I mean, I still am just as baffled as I was before. I mean, I have 545 pages, and yeah, we have some great theories and hypothesis and evidence, etc. But I still am just straight up baffled, man, as to what it is that's occurring because just in the reports that we just spoke about, okay, those don't fall into the category of the hyenas or Dinopithecus or bears or anything like that. I mean, a 7'4" looking like canine, like claw marks on the door with something that has an articulated thumb. Interesting. And I mean, and like you said with Deputy Chamberlain, he got trolled so bad after that. He never
Ugh.
spoke about that again. And still to this day, no one's ever been able to interview him again. He gave his documentation and that was it. And he got harassed about it and yeah, never spoke about it again.
Also, there's a repeated pattern of Dogman behavior, apparently, and a repeated pattern of the type of sounds that they make and how they behave. So that can't just be dismissed.
No, exactly. And that's why we got the science team and things to actually be able to pick up on that and figure out what it is that is occurring because, as stated, it's straight up mind boggling for sure, man. And well, I guess all we can really do is just try to continuously document things. And it's super hard, though. I mean, even like my little brother, he's a huge supporter of mine, one of them, and he's definitely a skeptic, but takes interest into this. And he's like, well, you have a great scientific aspect, but then you're sitting here telling me about how Linda Godfrey documented a case back in the 80s of someone seeing a blue spectral dog man like walking into a portal. He's like, there's no way I'm ever going to believe that. He's like, I don't care how much you tell me Linda Godfrey's credible and how people in the town thought this person was credible as well. He's like, I don't see how it can be like both ways and etc. So, yeah, I mean, you're always going to kind of run into things along the lines of that, but that's why I try to explain to people there's just different variations. And someone like my little brother who's super smart, I mean, he's a sewer septic engineer, but he just doesn't really seem to grasp how a hellhound and manifestations like that can be in the same category as a dog man. But
Well, you
that's
bet. You bet.
exactly.
I was a paranormal investigator for a long time. I knew the Warrens, and yeah, I know all sorts of crazy and outrageous things.
Yes, and that's just what I tried to, explain to him and such. But yeah, I mean, it's always we'll have to leave it open for our next conversation for sure to figure out some really interesting things to talk about. But I do obviously always appreciate you popping on, man, and investing your time here because you're a busy guy as well. So it's definitely good to link up, and hopefully we can begin to find a little bit more credence to this topic.
Oh, you bet. You bet, Ken. And keep the research going. It's needed.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. And remember, stock up on silver bullets and lock your doors and windows.